And he basically saw the commune as an extraordinary historical moment and thought, I'm not going to represent the commune, I'm not going to paint paintings of the commune, I'm actually going to get involved. I'm actually going to apply my creativity, I'm going to put my paintbrushes down and I'm going to apply my creativity to the commune, to actually building the commune, to actually being an artist with the canvas of the city and the social movement in that city. And one of the actions of creativity that he designed was the pulling down of the Vendôme column. So this is 1871, not so long ago really. This was a monument to imperialism. It had Napoleon on the top. It was made from melted down Prussian artillery, and they had a huge party in the square, and they pulled the Vendôme column, which was this symbol of hierarchy and pyramidical power, when what they wanted was horizontality. And it failed, and Courbet had to. The Versailles army came in, 25,000 or 30,000 people were killed, men, women, children, within 2 days on the streets of Paris. Courbet went into exile and died in exile. He was forced to pay for the rebuilding. But what's interesting is just afterwards, in a way, the Impressionists came, and a few years later had their first exhibition. So they'd run away, and then they came back, and in a way they aestheticized revolt, because their form was a revolt. You know, people described Impressionism as paintings made by throwing stones, and yet actually all they were doing were representing the bourgeoisie and bringing back the idea of Paris as a bourgeois city. And so for me, the lesson there was Courbet used the movement as his material. He put down his paintbrushes and used the movement as his material. Number 5. Crafting frames that enable creative chaos. So Reclaim the Streets got really bigger and bigger, and then we started to work with lots of the global movements in the 1990s and the People's Global Action, and we started to do things which were global days against capitalism. And this was the first carnival against capitalism. And it happened in about 100 cities, and in London, what we did is we created a carnival in the financial district, because the call out was to do carnivals in the financial district to replace the sound of profit with the sound of pleasure. And one of the projects there that I was involved in was what I would call creating a frame. Because within political movements, as an artist, quite a lot of artists are control freaks. You know, they like to control every single little bit, and they know if it's this or this, and they, absolute control freaks of detail. You can't do that in a social movement, because social movements need spontaneity, they need creative chaos. So what's really interesting is to create frames, very, very beautiful crafted frames, and within that frame, those frames will enable creative chaos to happen. So the frame that we created here was actually partly a solution to a problem. We knew that everyone was going to meet at this one railway station in Liverpool Street. It was on a Friday, it was a work day. We knew the police would try and stop us moving. They would try and shut down the tube stations, or they would try and stop us moving somewhere. So what we decided to do was we made 8,000 of these masks, and there were 4 different colours: red masks, green masks, black masks, and gold masks. And on the back of the mask was a text. And the text was a kind of, very poetic text about the role of finance capitalism, the role of the mask in carnival, the fact that CCTV cameras try and get our faces, and yet the faces of those in charge of financial capital are invisible, blah, blah, blah. And then on the bottom it said, on the signal, follow your colour, let the carnival begin. So the idea of the tactic was that we would pass the masks out to 4 corners of the station. So the red ones in one corner, the green ones in the other, the black ones in the other, the gold ones in the other. And the people passing them out had little flags of various colours in their pocket. On the signal, which was meant to be this Mission Impossible sound, Mission Impossible tune played from a sound system, the kind of doom, doom, doo, doo, doom, doom, doo, doo, doom. Unfortunately, there were too many people and no one could hear it. So we had to send a firework up. But on that signal, basically, the people got their flags out of their pockets and went off into 4 different ways, and the crowd followed. So the people with red masks went one way, the people with green masks went the other, black the other. And it created what was then called, by the police report afterwards, a starburst effect, which they couldn't actually control at all. their hierarchy collapsed at that minute. They didn't know what to do. And we were able to get to the London International Financial Futures Exchange, which is like a big exchange for futures speculation. We managed to open up where there used to be a buried river. We managed to kind of symbolically open the water and get a shoot of 100-meter water in the air, and people were making love in the water. The water was flooding into the stock exchange and shutting down the stock exchange. There was £10 million worth of damage done to the city that day. The front page of the Financial Times said, "Anti-capitalist besieged City of London," which was pretty good. And at the same time, it was happening all over the world. And it was 6 months before Seattle. So it was really the kind of precursor to the anti-globalization movement, and many people from Seattle were involved in it in some ways and heard about it, and it really inspired people in Seattle. This was the action that took place in Nigeria at exactly the same time, and they called it the Carnival of the Oppressed, and so on. So, tactic number 5, liberate the disobedient body. So, in about 2003, I had a really stupid idea. It was called, the idea was to set up a thing called the Clandestine Insurgent Rebel Clown Army. So, the idea was to use the clown, the idea of the clown, that is a naturally disobedient body. The clown is the kind of archetype of disobedience. It's an archetype that everyone understands. And I think it's very interesting to use archetypes in politics. Obviously, you've got to be very careful, but especially in Germany, I understand that's an issue. But I think the Zapatistas are an interesting example. The Zapatistas' use of the mask. The mask is an archetype in Mexico. Everyone understands what a mask is, what a mask means, and their use of the mask has been incredibly successful. So I felt the clown was a kind of European archetype as well, that everyone understands the clown. And the clown also, in a way, has been restricted. The disobedience has been put into the horrible children's parties, or the circus, or the theatre, and the clown as this real disobedient character has been kind of flattened. So the idea was to take back that disobedience and to also train people in direct action, and create a methodology where we would do the workshops and we would train people to be their own clown, to find their own clown, but also to learn tactics of civil disobedience. So we would do things like go into recruitment agencies during the war, during the Iraq War, and we would just march in as the clown army, and we would say, we want to join the army because we're really good at liberating people. We've heard you're liberating people in Iraq, so we've got lots of experience. We've been in the army for a long time, so we'd really like to join. But we do it in the most stupid way. And of course, then they'd have to shut down the agency, and we managed to shut them down for a day. And then we'd set up our really bad, shitty recruitment school for the clown army outside. It's interesting, if any of you have been looking at the press and the media, we've just had 5 undercover police officers discovered in our movements over the last 10 years in England. This is one of them. She's called Lynn Watson, and she was the worst clown ever. So the other thing about the clown army was it had a kind of deeper psychological work involved in it. My experience of activism is that a lot of activists, you get involved in activism because you feel something deeply in your body. You sense it. It comes back to the aesthetics. You sense it in your body. You get involved, you maybe start to do more research, you realise, oh shit, the injustice that you were interested in, you realise it connects to all the other injustices in the world, and then you start to kind of work, and then you start to get repressed by the police, and then maybe you start to lose all your friends because your critique becomes more and more radical, and you can only really talk to radicals anymore. And then you kind of slowly build up armour. You slowly build up this kind of armour against feeling. So you begin by feeling and you end by not feeling. And for me, the disaster of a social movement is to have a social movement made up of coats of armour. You don't feel. Because when you don't feel, you make mistakes. You don't feel other people's needs. And fundamentally, freedom for me is understanding the needs of the other. That's what freedom is about. So if you can't feel, then how can you understand the needs of the other? So the clown army idea was the clown is a very interesting character because clown training involves ripping off the armour, and actually the clown has not even skin. The clown feels everything directly. The clown is a kind of, it's related to the shamanic character, and it really is a figure that is neither male nor female, neither stupid nor funny, nor wise, neither scary or friendly. It's this kind of very strange in-between character who has no skin. So the idea of the training was very much to get activists to feel again through the clown training. And what it would do is create really unexpected forms. The police didn't really know how to deal with it at first. Now they do, but and so there were some really lovely moments. This was a clown who she would put lipstick on, then she would kiss the riot shield, and then she would put more lipstick and kiss. So in the end, all the riot shields were just covered in kisses. And the riot piece actually moved away afterwards, which was really the magic of clowning. There were some moments of magic that I don't know how to rationally explain how that happened, actually. So the other good thing about clowning is that you're a trickster. You can change shape. We managed to lie to the Ministry of Culture and say we were a kind of travelling theatre company and we needed £24,000 to travel around the country to do trainings in rebel clowning. And so we managed to get the money, and we didn't tell them that we were ending at the G8, and we basically did a 9-city recruitment tour, and so we pulled this caravan all the way. No, we didn't. We had it. And we did shows in different public spaces, and loads of different people came. It was interesting, at one point the Scotland Yard rang the kind of arts officer of this borough, this little municipality in London, and the Scotland Yard rang her, and she's just the arts officer, and she said hello, and they went, oh, Scotland Yard, and she went, oh, hello, and they said, did you know that they're not a normal travelling theatre company? And they said, you have to look, if you Google Big Shoe Camp, you'll see what they're really about. Which was quite interesting. I mean, she then freaked out, rang me, but what was interesting, we then had a long conversation about the role of disobedience and direct action, and that everything we take for granted comes from that, and she came to the show and loved it, and it was great. So we did the shows, and during the shows we had radical origami lessons, where we would make these started on as hearts, and then they became D for disobedience instead of D for done. And then those also became megaphones, and then you could turn them upside down, and they became chip cones, and we gave free chips. If you ever want people to come to your show, give them free chips. You turn up in a town, you say free chips, dozens of people come. It's incredible. It doesn't matter how bad the show is, really. And then after the show, we would do a 2-day workshop with local activists and local artists and so on, and do the training in rebel clowning, and then we ended up taking. We then had an exhibition in an art gallery where we invited people to plan their attack with the clown army on the G8. So it was kind of a war room, and the plan was to so people could touch this and all move it around, and the plan was to make the fences higher around the G8, to say, well, they should stay in the hotel because they're dangerous, and we should make the fences higher. And we managed to recruit about 200 clowns, which was great, and we got up to the G8, and we did a whole series. So this is in 2006, I think, 7. I can't remember when it was in Scotland. And then on the day that all the papers were like, anarchists coming to town, they're going to eat your babies. On that day, we were doing a load of different actions, blocking the delegates' coaches and so on. And then one group of clowns, a small group, who split off from the big group, met a load of police on a bridge, and this is what happened. It's the best video ever. That's never happened, hang on. Oh, am I talking too fast? Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna just. Sorry. I don't know. I think when we changed all the movies things, it's reset the movies, which is really annoying. Just wait for me.
Take your time.
Sorry. I think when we change the computers, it talk amongst yourselves, do some clown exercises. Anyone who did the workshop will know exactly what was happening there. So basically it's a game a bit like paper, scissors, stone.